coaching is not, number one, a magic pill you just take, you buy from the supermarket, at $5.50, and then you drink the water, right?
Yeah.
And immediately you're like, whoa, I'm going to nail it. It takes work, it takes commitment, sometimes sacrifice to make sure that you are going to work on yourself.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast, where we take things one day at a time. Today in the studio, we have Gerald.
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
Hi.
Gerald. Thanks for coming in. Before we begin, let's do a quick introduction about yourself.
Sure. My name is Gerald. I have a little bit about myself. I have been working in the corporate world for over 20 years across different markets, different industries. And now I'm embarking on a coaching journey to kind of support artists, professionals, creators in their growth journey as well. So I'm really excited to share, a bit more about what I'm trying to get to.
Nice. Okay, so Gerald, professionally these days, you are known as a coach, right? So I think coaching is not something that many people, like myself, for example, are very familiar with, right? I mean, we hear things like, like swim coach, sports coach, endurance coach, type of thing, a life coach, right? But can you help us break down, right? What exactly does a coach do?
Sure. The best way to describe coaching really is you map it to like sports, right? You have a coach that is behind the athlete, really guiding, ensuring that the right mindsets are there, the right skills and the right resources are available for the athlete to really shine when the moment arrives, right? So a coach is really someone who works with somebody, an individual, to unlock the mind, to create, to look at growth opportunities, to kind of help the individual decide and have a direction on where they want to grow in their careers, in life, or in their relationships, for example. So someone to really work with towards peak performance or big moments in life, or just kind of journey with you to make sure that you're ready for moments in life that comes along your way.
Okay, as I understand from you off camera, like earlier, there are actually different types of coaches, right? Like you mentioned peak performance and things like that. So what are apart from the sports coach and things like that, what are the different types of coaches that are more common in our society? And what are the differences between them?
Yeah, I think coaching is a very new and broad industry, particularly in Singapore, right? And there are all kinds of different coaches who specialize in certain areas or maybe lean towards certain areas. Could be career, could be life coaching, could be executive coaching, could be specific areas as well as you kind of go down the line. So broadly, it goes back to the coachee, someone looking to find a coach and searching for somebody who would be the right fit for that. A lot of coaching is really about the chemistry. It's really about having that trust, that relationship, that deep understanding, and a great working relationship to support the coachee towards where he or she wants to go. So I think you go online, there are a bunch of different websites, bunch of different things available online, and a lot of different coaches, right? So I think it really goes down to speaking to a few people, reaching out to your network and identifying folks that you can really resonate with. And I think particularly also looking at people who might have some sort of a similar background as you do, for example, right? And that might help. I also personally have a executive coach, and I've been working with him for a few years. So the reason why I worked with him was because he had a very similar background as I do, in corporate, in marketing, running the business, and he was a coach. So hey, I really wanted to work with him. And there also would be a distinction between coaching and mentoring, which we can talk a little bit about later.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I would approach it. If you look at coach, it's really about finding the right fit that will work with you. And coaching, like any other industry, it's an open market. You have a lot of people who are doing marketing, great ones, maybe not so great ones, and it's depending how you want to approach it, right? So in every industry, there are different doctors, different lawyers, different marketers, different producers, different musicians, for example. And I think it's just how do you find the right one that jams with you and vibes with you.
Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into it, right? I think this is going to be a little bit of a tough question. You don't answer it if you don't want to.
Okay.
But, when you pay someone for a service, right, a lot of times it's quantifiable in some way, right? But when it comes to things like coaching, for example, okay, so let's say tuition, right? You pay a math tutor to go for tuition, and at the end of the year, if you get an A, the math tutor has done a good job, right? So how does a coachee kind of determine if that is the right coach for him or her? What measure do coaches use to kind of determine that? Because it is oftentimes not as quantifiable as like a A grade, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really boils down to the individual, right? What he or she wants to achieve in her goal, her life, right? It could be, I'm transiting and from a career now to another industry, for example, and I need someone to help me, work with me to prepare myself for that transition. Right, that would be one example, and it's really sometimes it may not be always like I need to earn $10,000 more with this salary, and then that's very measurable, right? I think it's not really about that. It's really about shifting of the mindset and taking that person on from point A to point B and towards where they want to go, and asking questions like what does success look like in your new role? What kind of resources would you need to make you successful? Things like that, and I'm a firm believer that everybody has talents within them. It's how do we make the most out of it, right? So a coach is kind of really looking at working with the individual towards making the most out of the talents and making sure that they succeed. And, it could be a transition in careers. It could be I'm an artist and a musician and I have a little bit of a creative block, for example. So I need to work with someone to help, find me that flow, that momentum that I'm always delivering creative output in a sustainable long-term way. So now a coach could work with you to understand what's causing that creative block, for example, and really ask very powerful questions on perhaps when was the last time you saw that you experience that flow? How do we kind of bring that back? How do you put yourself in an environment that makes you thrive, for example, or work with, collaborate with people, so on and so forth. It's really kind of deepening and peeling the onion, I would call it, like kind of going beneath the iceberg to say, hey, what can we work with to help you break through, to transit to another moment, to kind of get into that creative flow, to prepare yourself for the next big presentation with the senior executives, for example, or to prepare you for the biggest performance on a stage where there's 50,000 people watching you play,
Right.
So things like that. So it's really broad. It really goes down to the individual. Back to your point of measuring, I think it's sometimes a feeling, it's something, a moment. Sometimes it's like, hey, I've progressed from here to here. And coaching is all about taking you forward. It's not retrospective. And we can touch on that again. Like, what's the difference between coaching, mentoring, counseling, and consulting, right?
Right.
So coaching is about forward momentum, right? And I can share a little bit more with this model that I literally came up with yesterday.
Nice. Okay.
And it's called the vibe model, the vibe framework.
I saw it on social media.
Yeah, and I can elaborate a little bit more about that more on my Instagram and on my LinkedIn. But it's about thinking about how do you move somebody forward, right? Preparing them for the best performance or peak performance when they are there at that moment, right? So coaching is not, number one, a magic pill you just take, you buy from the supermarket, at $5.50, and then you drink the water, right?
Yeah.
And immediately you're like, whoa, I'm going to nail it.
Right.
It takes work. It takes commitment, sometimes sacrifice to make sure that you are going to work on yourself, right? To really develop and grow, So coaching is very powerful if you find the right coach to work with you and journey with you. And coaching is about teamwork. It's about teamwork. It's not like me and you, right? It's again, go back to the tennis court. The lights are on the player and the coach is behind watching and supporting. But all the work's done before the player actually walks on court to play the game. So no easy answer to your question.
Right.
Do I earn more money in this job? Yeah, then the aspiration is that. How do we work together to achieve that goal? And that goal is really momentum, velocity, the forward movement towards your success. Yeah.
You know, based on what you're describing, it's coaching and the way that you coach, right, or each individual coach is largely dependent on the person that you're coaching, right? So is there like a preliminary assessment process that you personally do to kind of ensure that your coachee and you kind of vibe, right? Because you mentioned it's a bit of a teamwork. There's no real roadmap or framework to each thing because it depends on what the coachee wants to achieve, right? So is there like so you cannot just hire any coach and you cannot just take on any coachee. So for you, what is like the preliminary kind of filtering process to ensure that this relationship would kind of work?
Very good question. So the process usually starts with somebody looking for a coach, right? That's one. And the other, when someone approaches me, for example, to say, hey, I want to work with you, the first thing I do is I set up what we call a discovery and chemistry call. Right, it's free. It's 1 hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour, depending on how long we go. But I usually set it between 45 minutes to 1 hour. And the call is to really get to know each other. Right. For the coachee to know who I am, just hear my voice, see me in person or through a Zoom call, and understand what my beliefs are, my values are, and my approaches, my experience, so on and so forth. The usual. Like getting to know me. And also for me to have chemistry and discovery session with the coachee or potential coachee to understand his or her challenges, goals, what they're facing, what their aspirations are, where do you want to go, and assess very carefully whether there would be a nice fit and I'm able to support the person, because I'm a believer of if there's no value I can add, then, why bother? I want to make sure everything I do and everyone I work with, I'm adding value. So that's the journey. That's the first kind of step. Also in that call, one thing I want to make sure I mention is sometimes people don't understand the difference between coaching, mentoring, counseling, and consulting, right? So I am not a trained therapist. That is something that you go back to the past and you're kind of discovering that and you kind of unlock. So with that happens, and if I sense that, hey, this person is not looking for a coach or a mentor, for example, and it's really about that therapy side of things,
right?
Then I say, hey, you know what? This is probably not the right fit for me. I'm not a trained therapist, and maybe I might refer you to somebody I know that could really help you in that sense. So the first step is really the chemistry call. Right. Both ways for me to understand the person and to make sure that the person's willing to also then work on themselves to make the change, because it all starts with you, right?
Do you think, okay, so I want to get into the topic of, the difference between mentorship, coaching, therapy, and like being a consultant, right? But before we get into that, I just wanted to get your opinion on something. Like, do you think that, it's very difficult to work on ourselves with ourselves sometimes, right? That's why we kind of engage a coach or a therapist or whatever. But do you think it's because we are paying for the coach, right, that people become a little bit more willing to work on themselves, because it's like, hey man, I pay for this then I gotta make the best of it, right? Like, do you think that there's a little bit of a placebo thing where because you're paying for the thing and whatever the coach tells you, you kind of have to make the best of it lah? Yeah. Do you think that it is that case, or do you think it really depends?
I think it really depends, but I don't think it's look, the question, the topic here is, if you're paying, will you do more of it? Right. I'm committed because I'm paying for it versus not paying for it. I think there is no one simple answer, but the way I would look at it is, you're paying someone, or you're paying for your facials, you're paying for a nice haircut, for example, you're paying to attend courses, so on and so forth. It's same thing for coaching, right? It's a ongoing journey, and if you're committed to it, and you want to hire a professional to work with you, then that makes a difference. I think it's a shift in mindset already. You're invested in it. Right. And sure, you could be, investing in yourself, and you could be doing it by yourself, for example, by reading and all that. Right. But if you're working with somebody and you're able to see that person face to face, and the coach is able to work with you, to kind of journey with you, to co-create what your vision could be, it's very powerful. And I always believe that no man's an island. We all rely on each other. Right. And if you have people to work with you, a buddy with you, it's always more powerful because you have someone asking the right questions, and be a very powerful mirror to say, hey, what is it that are you really thinking about?
Right.
And how are you going to get there? How do we work on the next steps together?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that it first starts with commitment to develop and grow. And hiring a coach is part of that journey. Like you would hire a therapist, or you hire a sports coach, or you hire a masseuse, all that, right? Same principle, but coaching is really about that forward view of setting you up for your peak performance or your next success journey.
I see. So do you think the difference, because there are a lot of books out there, like self-help books on like growth and coaching and things like that. I guess the difference between doing it yourself and doing it with a coach is that there is a human being there that can hold you accountable, right? You say that, okay, I'm gonna do this, gonna make a change, and then if you don't do it, the coach can come in and say, hey, what happened here, and then we can adjust, right? Do you think that is like the like you're talking about teamwork, and that's like the main benefit of working with a human being that has empathy and not a book that is kind of dishing out instructions on what to do, right?
Yeah, I think yes and no in a way. I think, first of all, accountability comes from yourself, and a coach can and will keep you accountable, and that's part of the coach's job. And you could also make yourself more accountable by working with accountable buddies, right? You can have a friend or a spouse, something, hey, I'm going to work on this. If I don't do this, call me out. You can always find a way. So it always starts within, right? So there are also a lot of books available. But to your point, it's a set of instructions. It's just step by step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and go. But coaching is a lot about discovery. It's really about peeling the onion and going beneath the iceberg and kind of thinking about, hey, what is the main cause or main reason you're feeling like that?
Right.
And how do we shift you from here to there? What does it take?
Right.
And a lot of it, and we're all human beings, and we need to have someone to speak to. And I think having a great coach will make a big difference because we're asking the right questions. We're really understanding how we can kind of, work with you to unlock what is within you, and set you up for success. So that's how I would look at it, and yeah, the human element is very powerful. I'm a believer of that.
Right.
I love working with people, and it's a lot easier for me to have conversations.
Right.
And sometimes it's about the emotional feeling, like I feel great. I really want to feel empowered, so kind of going back to the whole vibe kind of model that I was speaking about earlier, it's about how do I set V for velocity, I for inspiration. How do I get the inspiration to kind of get things moving?
Right.
Branding for me. How do I be myself? How do I find my own voice and have a cohesive story for myself? And then how do I find the energy and the mental and physical health to make sure that I'm creating this journey together with my coach, right? And launch myself to success. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, let's dive into the topic of, mentorship versus coaching versus being a consultant and being a therapist. Like, I think this can be quite a big topic, right? But to put it simply, to summarize, what are the difference between like these different forms of, kind of working with a human being to be better, right?
Yeah. So coaching is about forward movement. So it's about asking. So a coach is not meant to give you or suggest or recommend solutions for you. That's more like mentoring, right? So I'll cover that a little bit, but coaching is really about asking powerful questions to the coachee and helping the person discover and unlock and, also imagine what success or the vision of what the future might look like and how do we get there and what do we need to do. So coaching is about the future and asking. So the coach asks questions, right? Mentorship is more about guiding somebody, so that you have like a subject matter expert to kind of guide you and work with you to become, to help do a proposal, to, best develop a strategy, for example, right? So it's someone working with you to guide you and show you and asking some questions along the way and bringing you on that path towards delivering something. And usually mentorship is a bit more short term, like, I need this proposal done by tomorrow. If I coach you, it's going to take me 3 days, because I'm not going to give you immediate solutions, right? So it's more like mentorship is going to help you kind of get there here to delivering the outcome. And many times coaching and mentorship can come in play, and I see, especially in the workplace,
right,
where you see a combination of both. But majority of the time, based on my experience, it's always about mentorship. It's kind of guiding a person from here to here because time's not on our side. However, most leaders need to think about this is you need to work with your team and coaches or coach your employees, right, on really developing for the long term. How do you coach them and guide them? So I feel that coaching as a skill set is going to be very, very valuable in organizations and leaders. It's going to evolve. So counseling, it's more about, and therapy, for example, is really in the past where someone has some sort of a problem, like a trauma or an issue, and the therapist will kind of go back there and kind of unpack that. I'm not a trained therapist, so I don't want to go too far down that path.
Right.
But that's what you generally kind of think about, And consulting is where you have an issue or a problem in an organization, for example, and hire a consultant to help me fix it or help me get me to here to there. And I think that's the way I look at it, right? You hire a consultant who is an expert in IT or business strategy. How do I troubleshoot and get my business challenge is this? How do I work with the consultant to get me from here to there? What the timelines are, and then off we go, right? Things like that.
Right.
So that broadly is how I would describe it.
Okay,
I also posted something on LinkedIn and Instagram today just on that, coincidentally.
Nice.
So go have a look at it. Yeah.
When it comes to say like being a therapist, right? You need to be licensed, and there's like a governing body to kind of ensure that you're doing it ethically and vice versa. When it comes to coaching, is there a similar governing body, or it's like a free for all type of thing?
It's a great question. The industry is pretty new, I would say, but especially in Singapore. There are coaches who are out there coaching already, who have done it for many, many years. And they're doing amazing, great coaches. But just because they don't have an accreditation, like from ICF, International Coaching Federation, for example, doesn't mean they're a bad coach.
Right, for sure.
Right? That more and more people are getting accredited because it gives them the credibility. It's just like, I got this chop there, like stamp that's like, okay, it makes me more credible. And they also kind of teach you the fundamentals of coaching, the ethics around it, and so on and so forth. So it's an open market, I would call it. It's like, they're free for all, quote unquote, right? There are great coaches who are not accredited, and I would obviously hire them as well. And there are obviously coaches who are perhaps not so great and early in the, and discovering their journey and all that also. So I think it really depends on the coachee having done their homework, having that chemistry discussion, and seeing if the coach is the right fit. Right. So there are organizations like ICF, who put coaches through a course, and then you give you the accreditation, and you're done. But if you don't practice, and having the accreditation also doesn't make sense, right? So I think it's really like any industry. If you're in marketing or you're in product development, or that you have your degree, you may or may not have your degree, or your degree may not actually be what you studied because you're in another field, right?
Right.
So it kind of maps back to any industry where people have a degree or a certification, but they're not actually working in that field, right?
Right.
And they have the experience. So it's kind of mapped to any other industry in that sense, except something that's highly regulated.
Right. Okay. So the reason why I'm asking you this question, as I always ask people in position of power, right? Because I see people like teachers, mentors, coaches as people in a position of power, because someone comes to you essentially seeking for some advice, some help, or some guidance on basically improving themselves. You are in a position of power, and when you're in a position of power, then comes the ethical concerns of this industry, right? Because not everybody is like you, right, who is ethical, and there are people out there doing this for personal gain. I mean, like, collecting a fee for good work done is not personal gain, in my opinion. But there are people out there who might not have the coachee's best interest at heart, right? That go out there and do coaching, right? And because unlike say like a therapist where you need to go through some rigorous licensing and checks and things like that, coaching and some form of being a teacher and things like that doesn't exactly have that in place, right? So in your opinion, how do the people in your industry combat the ethical concerns that there are great coaches out there, right? But there are also coaches that might be leading coachees in the wrong direction in the name of coaching, right? Because it's very scary lah. The coach's life is literally in your hands.
So I'll first off kind of go the technical route, right? Well, number one is every coaching the relationship starts with an actual contract. You know, if no one does that, I mean, that's a red flag. To me,
okay.
you should always get something written down and signed by both parties. It keeps everybody accountable. It keeps everyone clear on what the rules of engagements are like, right? And you feel free to use that and check it with your lawyer friend or whatever. But it's a very clear, simple agreement, and ICF and most coaches have a template that you can use, right?
Right.
So that's the technical aspect of it, right? So you should always enter a coaching agreement with a contract and to protect yourself.
Right.
The other one, the way I would look at it is like the role of a coach is not to hold you back. Remember that. You know, I do not want to be a clutch. And the role and the goal of coaching is on you as a coachee, the individual, right? It's meant for you to kind of discover what's right for you and to take accountability and action to kind of move in the right direction from there. Yes, I'll work with you, I'll keep you accountable, and we'll move forward. But the goal is to get the person to that checkpoint, the milestone, and then say, great, well, let's celebrate that, right? And then what's next? And it's not to keep you there and hold on to you for the next 12 months and you're not achieving any momentum, which is part of my V, the velocity. What's that momentum you're going to get right? So my greatest joy is to see people succeed. And the day that you don't see me of value, I'm happy to say, hey, move on. Like, you have achieved great results. Go and take on the world, you know? You don't need me. And if you feel that I'm still of value to take you to the next level, let's go, let's talk, let's work together again.
Right.
You know, so a coach should always bring a person forward. And the moment that you are going backwards emotionally, or what, I think then you need to really decide, number one, you know, what's happening.
Right.
And have a conversation openly with the coach and you know, discover what's the right step you need to take. And in the contract, it also clearly says, like, you know, if it's not working out, you can always terminate the contract, right? And there are obviously refunds and all kind of things that goes with it. Right. So, which is why I say I go back to the contract. I think it's very important.
Right.
But more importantly, the person. And to your point, the ethical part is so critical, right? You know, you have to really think about the coachee and bringing them forward positively in the right way. And they might hit a few stumbling blocks, right? And then how do we unpack that? How do we support them? What are the resources we need to bring into support? And then at the end of the day, we just want to see someone succeed. And it's a very rewarding, exciting, you know, experience. But yes, you know, you have to assess for yourself.
Right.
If you're moving forward.
Right. So essentially, it's also up to, it's not always on the coach, right? It's also up to the coachee to do his or her due diligence to ensure that, hey, I'm working with the right coach, I'm getting the correct support that I need, and vice versa, kind of like you mentioned just now.
Yeah.
Right. So in what stage of someone's like career or life do they need a coach? Like how does someone go about deciding, okay, I am facing XXXX, I think I need someone to coach me through it, right? How does the decision-making process to engage a coach look like to a coachee in your experience?
Yeah. So someone who's feeling that they're stuck at their career, you know, they have been trying all sorts of means and ways, but they still feel stuck. That's usually a common topic for career, right? Like, how do I unstuck myself? How do I stop this stagnation and unlock ways to move forward? Right. You know, so that's for career coaching. And I mean, there are many scenarios. I'll come out with a few and then I just kind of go by it, right? Even for someone who just got retrenched or let go, right? But I want to look forward what's next, because every moment comes with an opportunity. Right. How do I change? Right. So you could work with a coach to say, hey, you know, what are your core values? Where you want to go? How do I think about where should I go next? Right. And put yourself accountable. Like, you know, in the next three months, you know, that's what I want to achieve, for example. And then the person will just kind of go, and then I will work with the person to kind of unlock that story for themselves, right? Right. Okay. So I'm going to do something that's quite fun. I literally just thought of it this morning. Okay. So I'm going to give you a situation, right? I'm going to give you a couple of situations, and then you'll categorize, is this person suitable for mentorship, coaching,
therapy or like go to a consultant, right?
Okay.
Just simple situations, right?
Okay.
Just to illustrate like, the different situations that you would go to each individual professional.
Sure.
So for example, say I just got a new job, right? I just got a new job and I'm afraid I made the wrong decision, right? To jump to this new job. I got a higher salary, I got great work environment, but I am just very, very unhappy. Should I go to a therapist, a coach, a mentor, or a consultant?
I would say coach. Yeah, more coach. Because that coach will help you unlock why you're feeling that, what are the reasons why, and find you a way forward towards where you want to go, and I think that the answer to that is coach.
Okay, so if I am extremely successful in my career, in my business, like I'm getting where I want to be, I'm hitting all my milestones, but every time I hit a milestone, I still feel like empty inside. Like I don't know why I'm achieving these goals, even though I'm achieving them, and I feel lost. Who do I go to?
I would say coach as well, because it's about you're already thriving and you're moving forward, but actually also a bit of mentorship. Right, so I always say coach and mentorship comes together hand in hand. But you got to be very clear on what you're doing when you're working with somebody. Like if you're coaching, you're coaching, and then when you're done with coaching, for example, say maybe last 10 minutes or last 15 minutes, let's talk about mentorship. And then I close that curtain and say, okay, let's open a new door and let's talk about mentorship. Okay, tell me, maybe here are some suggestions you can think about. So that's like the guiding the person.
Right.
Similar, actually, I kind of go back to your first question, right? I think the person's feeling stuck and all that.
Right.
It's coaching for sure. I mean, that to me is like the most obvious one. But it could also come with a slight touch of mentorship because someone who might have experienced that is able to share some experiences, right?
Right.
So I think that's the way I would frame the question, the answer to you.
Right. Okay. Last one. This one I think might be quite complicated. Okay. So, say for example, you are achieving great things in your career. You're moving forward, whether you're running a business or in corporate, but your family is very unsupportive of you going out there to achieve these things because for reasons like you're not spending enough time with the family and you love your family, but you love your job, right? And you want both lah. So now there is a lot of the relationship aspect in place, but there is also the career progression aspect. So and you're stuck obviously, right? So do you go to a coach or do you go to someone else?
My answer to that is more coach and mentor, maybe depending on what the person is kind of going through.
Okay.
As long as you want to go forward and move yourself forward, I mean the thing is about it's always about coaching. Family issues and all that, everyone has kind of issues. I think it's understanding what the person is feeling, and that's why the chemistry calls are so important, right? To really understand the root situation of why the person's feeling stuck. And the stuck feeling could come in many facades, right? It could be a relationship, home thing that you mentioned.
Right.
It could be also like a career thing, but I'm thriving. I'm feeling stagnant there also. So then how should we unpack that?
Right.
Are we talking about two different topics and we need a couple of sessions to talk about that? How do we approach that mind space you're in? And if you want to unstuck yourself, then it's about, okay, how do we work together to move forward?
Right.
But if I'm not a therapist, but then that comes with a lot. I mean, that's a different conversation.
Correct.
When you unpack that, then what is the person telling you? Right. Or what he or she is saying? From there you are saying, okay, you know what? If you're talking about a past deep, I don't know, like really serious situation back when you were young, that's another situation altogether.
Right.
I would say I'm definitely not the right person.
Probably a therapist for that.
Probably a therapist, right? And kind of go from there. So.
Okay.
You raise a very good point. I just want to reiterate to everybody here, the role of a coach is so important. It's all about you, the person that we're working with. And the moment that we compromise any integrity for any short-term gains, I think you're in the wrong space. It's really about people. You must be truly invested and here to support the individual to really flourish and grow.
Right.
And not here to just make a quick buck.
Right,
that is the absolutely wrong thing. I mean, yes, it's a business, but you got to do it the right way. And I'm a big proponent of that. And I'm sure many similar, coaches who are in this space are also. So it's really about that. You have to have that.
Right. So based on what you're describing, right, would you say that some of the signs that a coach could potentially add value to you would be that you are you're kind of feeling stuck, right? You're kind of feeling stagnant. You are still excited to go and get stuff done, but you just don't really know how to take yourself forward, and you need some guidance in taking the next steps. Like this would be a very, very good sign or reason to be like, okay, let's go and get a coach to help me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way. That's one scenario. And it's about why are you feeling stuck? In which areas are you feeling stuck? In what aspect? Really going deep.
Right,
We talk
right.
about the iceberg and kind of going down the onion, right? Peeling the onion and going down that, right? So like, why is it really, what is it that you are, what's the reason why you're feeling stuck? What is it? What aspect? And then go from there.
Right.
That's one aspect, right? There could be also things like, again, I mentioned earlier, coaching somebody who's taking on a new job. That is a big promotion. Am I the best version of myself for that role?
Right.
How do I work with a coach to get myself there for peak performance, to be my best self? Right? How do I create the V velocity towards that? Have your milestones and checkpoints. Having the inspiration for great ideas that I can bring to myself to unlock my brain, my feelings, and even the skill sets I need to get to that job, for example. Where I am now as a person, as a brand, or the identity versus there, what do I need to do to get myself for the new gig, right? To be ready to speak with very senior executives, CEOs and above, like board shareholders and board members. Are you ready for those conversations? Well, we can definitely work on that, right? And then together, and it's up to the person. And then the last one is energy. Like how are you prioritizing your health and energy and creating habits for you to be successful?
Right.
Little things like how do you eat well, sleep well, and have the energy to really add value to the people around you, right? And that goes down to even managing your own energy. Because the first thing you wake up in the morning, everyone's asking for your time, right? Your phone, your social media, your email, your spouse, your kids, for example.
Right.
Where you only have 100%, How do you manage the energy? So VIBE is like a framework that I kind of love using, and I kind of recently thought about it. So kind of answering your question, it's really that, understanding where you want to go.
Right.
There are very many different situations, from career to career opportunities to creative flows to finding your voice, or even as simple as, I know I've worked on this before, as how do I be a better listener? How? What do you need to think about? Things like that.
Right.
So there are many ways, and there are many spectrums, and how do you kind of work with somebody to bring them to the next level?
Okay, so if someone is looking to kind of explore working with a coach, is there a directory they can look through? Like, where do you begin finding a coach that's suitable for you?
Yeah, great question, right? The first, I'm just putting myself in any consumer's shoes, it's like you go online and you start looking. The other thing is you look within your network. There are people because there are people who could likely recommend someone who they worked with, and there's a level of trust and credibility there because they worked, or he or she have worked with somebody, right?
Right.
So I would think that there are also many directories and organizations with a lot of coaches. So as with any headhunting exercise, if you're a recruiter looking for the right talent, you search, right? Same thing for searching for a coach. You put it out there on LinkedIn, or you put it out there on the online, or you search within your network, right? So there are many ways to go about it, because there are a lot of coaches, and I always believe that there will be a right coach for you. You just need to have the chemistry and take that leap forward to work with a coach, right? So there are many ways to kind of finding a coach.
Right. Okay. No, let's touch a little bit on being a coach, right? Do you think it takes someone of a certain stature, credibility, personality to become a coach? Because like for yourself, and I think for a lot of other coaches I know, they have had quite a lot of experience either in the corporate world like yourself, in life, maybe they have gone through some really, really tough times and things like that. Do you think you need that in order to kind of kickstart your career as a coach?
Yeah. So the answer to that is, I would say anybody can be a great coach if you are able to have to listen, have the right technique, and so doesn't mean you need to have 20 years, But obviously, someone with experience and have real life experiences coaching in various scenarios and situations, in organizations, in personal relationships with friends who need support and all that. It's like any other industry. The more you do it, the better you become. So it kind of goes back to the fundamentals of experience. So I always believe every budding marketer, every budding creative or artist has the potential to be an amazing artist right at the start, or sometimes they need time to develop as well, right? So everybody has it in them, and how do you then, deliver that, find the right person to work with also. I mean, that's key, right? So that's the way I look at it. Obviously, someone like who has more experience will bring a level of kind of maybe mentorship perhaps. Like the experiences there. And I always go back to the point of like the chemistry, right? You work with someone because you know that he or she has a level of chemistry and trust with you. And also has some sort of a background that you can tap into as well, right? Beyond just coaching. So I would say that the answer to that is everyone has a potential to be a great coach. Again, it depends on the level of experience and finding a coach that works for you. I think that's most important.
And you mentioned just now that there are places that you can go to, I guess, get certified and get some form of coaching education per se, right? But that is not a requirement, right? As long as you have people that are willing to be coached by you and you are willing to coach them, then I guess you're a coach lah. In some way. Okay. If you have been a human being, working in corporate and all these things for a long time, right? So, do you yourself personally only take on coachees that is in a similar industry, is in a similar kind of framework, or do you say someone comes to you and say, "Hey, I need peak performance for my swimming competition"? Like, would you take on that person?
Well, I mean, I'm not a swimming coach, so definitely not.
Okay.
But I do not, I feel that coaching is non-contextual. I could definitely work with anybody who wants to move forward and has the heart, commitment, and the spirit and the right mindset to who wants to work on themselves. But yes, I'm naturally drawn to people who I have similar experiences or from the same industry. For myself, for example, like, in marketing and in a professional executive environment in corporate, creators and artists, it's a bit of my background as well, and enjoy working with this group of people. But again, it depends whether the coachee is comfortable working with you. And as a coach, I don't really, say, okay, I only want to work with these people. But I would, and I know myself personally, I do enjoy having this conversation because it's kind of going back to the chemistry bit. And if the person wants to work with me on also a slight mentorship part, I'm able to kind of support that person in whatever experiences I have as well to add value back to the person's life.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Gerald, and sharing about your experience. If someone is listening or watching the podcast and they're keen on kind of chatting with you to kind of do that discovery call or to kind of get to know you a little bit better and what you do, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can look for me online or at www.geraldang.com or hit me up on Instagram at Gerald_Ang, and I'll be happy to kind of speak with you and have a discovery session. So looking forward to, talking to more people as we go.
Nice. Thank you so much, Gerald, again.
Thank you. You're welcome.
We'll see you next time. Oh, thank you, Gerald. And we'll see you next time on the One Day at a Time podcast. Peace.